It's Jess. Welcome back to the Not Carrie Bradshaw YouTube channel. In this video, I'm violently late reviewing episode 8 of P-Valley. Please bear with me. It was my birthday. I was in Vegas. I had to come back and get adjusted to life outside of vacation, but I'm here. Okay, I'm present and we ready. So let's dive right in. So our heroes are back at the Pynk. We're gearing up for yet another reopening, right? And our girl Mercedes is struggling, right? We're up to code and we're trying to decide, who's gonna headline. And naturally, we would think it would be Mercedes. She's the vet, but Mercedes is still struggling to get back in the saddle on the pole, following not only the trauma from Montavious' murder, which shouts out to Diamond for, pulling the spirit out of her shoulder, but she also now has PTSD from when she fell off the pole. And I feel like pole dancing is like gymnastics and like figure skating where you can't hesitate to execute these moves. Like you can't half-ass it. You got to do it with your whole ass every time. And it's not something that you can really perform well from a place of fear. It's acrobatics on a pole in the air. And she's very fearful. And it's really hard to watch her struggling like this, right? So I really hate to agree with Autumn Haley, Savage, Lakeisha, Quita them, whatever. But Mercedes is not ready to be back on the pole. She's not ready to be back on stage. And like, don't put me in a position where I got to agree with her. I don't appreciate that. So she suggests having Keyshawn open as the headliner. And here's what, that's a solid strategy. Keyshawn has a huge following right now. They need to draw in as many people as possible, especially given that they can only open at 50% capacity. It's a solid strategy. I was really happy to see that when Keyshawn came into the club, that her and Mercedes actually had a really good exchange where it was like, your vanity's still here, your locker's still here, and they both acknowledged that neither of them expected to be in this position in their lives again. Like when we last left them in the club together, they were both supposed to be leaving Murder Night and going off and doing big things on the horizon, and now they're right back ultimately in the same place. And I think one of the themes of this episode is that it's really hard to look to the future when you are stuck in survival mode. It's hard to get out of a certain mindset, and then that's just a life that's hard to leave. How do you progress from that lifestyle? It's really hard to get up out of a hole that you dug for yourself when you were doing what you had to do. And that's a recurring theme throughout this episode that we'll see come up again. But I was really happy to see that there was no beef, and it was just still like this kind of sisterly love between the two of them. And Keyshawn needs that. Like, Keyshawn needs people to love on her, to pour into her so that she can actually move forward with making her escape from Derek's trifling ass, but we're not there yet. So Maine is out of jail, right? And Maine is very cute and it's all well and good. He invites Mercedes to this block party that they're having to celebrate him being home early because COVID swept through the jails, which we remember seeing in real life. People got some early releases because the jails were at capacity for COVID. So he has a little, ankle accessory or whatever. And again, Maine is cute. And he obviously loves our girl, but he doesn't have anything to offer her. Mercedes needs someone who can provide or add to some stability in her life. Like, she really does need like a benefactor, and she needs someone who can kind of hold her up right now. And I say this as feminist, like, everybody needs a little help every now and again. Mercedes needs some help, okay? And Maine really can't do that for her. And I was so happy that she acknowledged and was cognizant of the fact that like what he was trying to do by, finger banging her, I guess, was not really what she needs right now. And that's half the battle. Half the battle is knowing what you need. That's like the first step, knowing what you need, then like pursuing it and turning down the shit that's not in alignment with that. So I was really happy that Mercedes shows some maturity right there. Shell, drunk ass, finds out about Terica's abortion and comes through drunk and mad. And Terica decides to leave with her mom with Shell. Do y'all think Mercedes felt a little bit betrayed at that time, instead of like, Mercedes went to get her an Uber home, and Terica was like, no, I'll take her home. And then it was her, saying mom, and they both answered. It's, this power struggle over Terica and doing what's best for her. And I wonder if when Terica decided that she was going to drive Shell home, did Mercedes feel a little bit betrayed in that moment? Let me know what y'all think about that in the comments below. Lil Murda's character development in this show should be studied, awarded, dissected, celebrated. Like, this is not only stellar writing, but also acting. I think that he is doing such an amazing job. So when last we left off, Lil Murda and Uncle Clifford had this huge breakthrough in the intimacy of their relationship, physically and emotionally, right? They had unprotected sex. Lil Murda let Uncle Clifford basically top him, and so it was like this exchange of power and vulnerability. And it looks like they're both now having second thoughts or like some insecurities about, I guess, the safety of it. This is where unprotected sex is tricky, because are you going to trust this person at their word that they are, free of infection, or are you going to demand to see paperwork? And I think that this is also a thing that happens when people feel too vulnerable. It's called a vulnerability hangover. Shouts out to Brene Brown. I think that they both, maybe it was a reality check or something of, well, where you been? Well, where you been? I've had the experience in my life where a guy has felt like he's been too vulnerable with me or shared too much, and then they retreat, and there's this weirdness. And it's like, well, I didn't ask you to tell me nothing about yourself that you weren't ready to tell me. So even outside of the physical vulnerability, the emotional part sometimes makes people really take a step back because they fear that they've shared too much. So Lil Murda goes to visit Teek's body, and we're at Wodie's funeral home, and we learn the source of the tape that Rome had. And again, this character development here continues to teach us more about Lil Murda, who he is, where he's come from, why he moves the way that he moves. Basically, he was exploited when he was 15 years old. He was recorded having sex with what I'm assuming is an older man, and somehow Rome got a hold of this. And he says, like, I did what I had to do, to put food on the table, keep a roof over our heads. And that is so tragic on so many levels, that digging into someone's past and learning, like, damn, did you ever have a chance to begin with? That broke my heart. And, Wodie assures him that if it does surface, because he's like, what if Rome sent it to someone before you killed him? And he's like, if it does surface, I'll handle it. And Lil Murda has this judgment towards Wodie for, like, you're not God. You're not allowed to take someone's life. I think that because Wodie is a mortician, he has a much more intimate relationship with death, and he views it in this much more pragmatic way, where he's saying that all this shit balances out in the end. So from Wodie's perspective, all the shit balances out in the end. Rome was not a good person. Rome was an attempted rapist. We can only assume that he succeeded at sexually assaulting several people before he attempted to assault Keyshawn. So Wodie is like, people die, a baby is born, all this shit balance out in the end. We're both God. And, he has this pragmatic philosophical view on why it was okay for him to kill Rome. And for me, I lived for it, okay? Because this is fictional and it was giving Game of Thrones. I loved it. But that judgment is really interesting given what Lil Murda goes on to do. So, after the funeral, Pico, their like rival gang member or whatever, gets on social media and starts claiming responsibility for Teek's death per the fight they had in New Orleans. Well, we know that Teek committed suicide. And like, this is some real shiesty ass shit to do to build up. Like, you're trying to get clout on on a tragedy that you really don't even have anything to do with. It's layers of messed up. So the gang, Hartfield Hustlers, decide like they need to take care of Pico. And Lil Murda basically earned his name. So, he runs up on Pico. And, you know, Pico is like, man, I didn't do this shit. And it's like, well, yeah, we know that. But, you know, he's like, I got kids. And it was like, to see Lil Murda go to this like psychopath, sociopath, like grief, revenge kind of place and just be like, well, I'll be sure to let him know you loved him, or whatever the line was that he said. It's just like, oh shit, like he really about to do this shit and just go off into the night. And I was heartbroken to see him go to this place where it felt like he made this progress with Uncle Clifford, and then to see him earn this name basically. That really broke my heart. Like, I was disappointed, but it's also like I understand, but I was disappointed. So Lil Murda then gets back in the booth. And for me, it's like, did you feel super motivated because you took out your competition? Are you now about to get in the booth and come out? Are you about to undo all the progress that you made with Uncle Clifford? Like, what exactly are you about to get in the booth to do? I'm nervous. Y'all know I have my notes so I can keep up with everything. So Uncle Clifford is struggling with yet another Uncle Clifford has a lot on her plate, okay? Ernestine is in the hospital. She can't get any updates on her. They're telling her that, you know, no news is good news and stop calling. As we know, in the real world, it was really hard to even visit people who were hospitalized with COVID because the units were just on such lockdown, and you could only have so many people, even people who were having kids, like you could only have so many people in the room. So it's a mess. So she's very out of control. This is like the third, fourth reopening of the club. The future of the club is uncertain. There is a lot of uncertainty and anxiety and fear for Uncle Clifford right now. Like, everything is kind of topsy-turvy in her life right now. And then she's haunted by her mother's ghost. And one of the things that her mom said, I thought was such a beautiful line. She said, don't fight the water, child. Let it wash all over you and it'll set you free. I have been trying to tell that to people for so long, especially as of late, with the bereavement that we're dealing with in my family right now. I hate that people are socialized not to cry. I hate that when people cry, people are like, oh, don't cry. Crying is so natural. Crying is freeing. Crying is human. I hate the notion that people don't feel free enough to cry when they have the notion to. It serves a purpose. It's an emotional release. And the harder you try to fight it, what you resist persists. If you need to cry, and, you know, even if you don't feel comfortable crying in front of other people, step outside, go to the bathroom, do what you have to do, but don't deny yourself the expression of a human emotion. Like, I hate that so much. And I hate how we respond to people crying. I hate how uncomfortable it makes us to see someone in such a vulnerable state, whereas we should be compelled to give compassion and empathy to that person and hold space for them. But our discomfort trumps whatever they're going through. That's just something that I personally really struggle with. So, Uncle Clifford goes to her mom's grave and it's like, you know, maybe I haven't visited you enough and that's why you're visiting me, but please don't take Ernestine. Because ultimately, who does Uncle Clifford really have? She can't really rely on Lil Murda right now because this nigga might go back to shit. We don't know. Like, things are kind of up in the air. We don't know the future of the club. You know, Ernestine is her stability, and that would be like pulling the rug from under her. So I fully understand that. So Andre and Corbin. Andre is not smart. Andre is not smart, because why would you think that people wouldn't find this out? So Wayne Kyle is going on a smear campaign against Patrice Woodbine and Andre. So where Andre gave this whole speech about how his dad died, his dad is actually on death row for murder. Why would you think that people wouldn't find that out when you are running for mayor? Why? Andre is not smart. Like, I'm really annoyed with, what did Uncle Clifford call him? Great value Obama. Like, please, why would you keep this away from him? And like, Corbin really be going the fuck off, but Corbin was fully justified in this frustration, because it's like, bro, why wouldn't you tell me this? I told you any dirt that you got, we need to know about, because they will hit us over the head with this. So he's freaking out. Patrice Woodbine owns her shit. Patrice Woodbine said, I'm a hoe and all my hoes is honest. Like, I know what I did out of survival, and I want to make sure other people don't have to go the route that I went. And I actually really appreciate her being able to spin that. She's still a terrible person. but I do appreciate her trying to spin that into something better. So Corbin tries to confront his brother to no avail. Uncle Clifford visits Corbin because they have this like friendship from childhood. And the way Uncle Clifford pulled up and was humming the Color Purple song, that sent me. That is such a deep cut because you have to like really know that movie to know that part. I love that part. It really blessed my spirit. The whole scene with Corbin really highlights something that I love the most about Uncle Clifford. So Uncle Clifford is, first of all, Corbin is a white man at heart. Corbin has a lot of hostility towards Black women. And I wonder if he has like some mommy issues because he, the way that he talks about Patrice Woodbine and the smoke that he has for Autumn, it really reeks of misogynoir, anti-Blackness, and misogyny. And I wonder if he has some sort of issues with it. Feels like he wants to be able to navigate the world as a white man, but you are biracial. You don't get to do that. He's biracial. And this whole like tragic mulatto storyline, I love that Uncle Clifford really like called him out on it. And so Uncle Clifford is like, listen, you need to just try to buy Patrice Woodbine off because like that's what she responds to. And again, in true white man at heart fashion, with no regard or awareness for his own privilege, he says to Uncle Clifford, do you know what it's like to have the whole world turn their nose up at you? And it's like, do you know who you're talking to? Like, of course she does. More than you. Like, what are you talking about? And what I love the most about Uncle Clifford, despite the fact that Uncle Clifford has a much more complicated, nuanced, less heteronormative identity, she is the person who has the best grip on who she is. She has the most sense of identity. Yes, it's complicated compared to what we consider to be normal and all of the things, but she knows who she is and she knows who she isn't. Everyone around her doesn't. Everybody else is trying really hard to be someone that they simply are not. Autumn Haley, Lakeisha Savage can't pick a name. Lil Murda is gay, but can't come out, or maybe is Lil Murda pansexual? Either way, can't come out as what he actually is. And these, cisgender men who have that level of privilege have such a struggle with their identities. And Uncle Clifford is like, I know who I am and who I am not, and you can't say the same. And I absolutely love that for her, that sense of security. I love it. I'm confused, y'all. If the club is pressed for cash, if Autumn Haley is pressed for cash, how did she give Corbin how did she give Andre a $10,000 check? I'm curious about that. Whisper and Roulette, they are very committed to not ending up like Mercedes. They don't want to be geriatric on the pole, which is giving ageism. I continue to not like Roulette. Like, she's obviously a traumatized person who just has like a shit personality. I don't really see it for her, but whatever. So Roulette tells Whisper, you really need to take Terrence up on this offer to eat you out for this money. Like, unless you want to end up like these, they don't have no 401k plan, no retirement, they don't know what they about to do with their life. You need to get this extracurricular money. So Roulette sets it up. She tells Terrence, like, I'm going to be here in the room, like, to make sure everything goes well. So they do the do. He doesn't want to pay full freight. He feels like her performance wasn't good enough. And they ultimately end up robbing him. Roulette earns her name. Like, Roulette is truly thrown off. She puts this gun in his mouth, puts his gun in her head, pulls the trigger. It was very like, oh my God, what is happening? Whisper is freaked the hell out on several levels because she done got choked out by him. And now Roulette is, like having a moment. It's a lot going on in this scene, but I do love that they robbed him because he got what he deserved. Now, I'm nervous about what the retaliation is going to be because not only did they take all his clothes and stuff, they also took his car, and Roulette takes it to the chop shop, and it's like, break this thing down, whatever. Roulette is thrown off. She's thrown off, but he got what he deserved. He's a trouble person. Okay, so Keyshawn. So Autumn Haley Lakeisha Savage is, number one, I think Autumn Haley Lakeisha Savage is overplaying her hand with Georgie. I don't think that Georgie is the type of person that you want to like really fool with like that. And I really do think that she's overplaying her hand in the racist hair salon. But I'm also not a gambler. So I don't know. Maybe this will work out in her favor, but I don't be taking those chances. Anyway, so she's getting passports for Keyshawn and the kids so that they can make their escape after this club reopening. I'm excited about it. I hope it works out because, again, this is a hard life to escape for several reasons. And she's just trying to figure out like how she's gonna sell Derek on the idea of her going back into the club. So once again, she has to emotionally manipulate him, which literally is life or death. Do what you gotta do, girl. So I want to know where Derek get Louboutin money from. Where he get the money from to buy these shoes that are too small, because he doesn't realize that things change. Like, you have two babies, your feet spread. And he starts, beating up on himself if he can't do anything right, and what can he do to make things right, and blah, 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 blah. And so this is Keyshawn's opportunity to convince him to let her go back and like work the club so that they can get some money. And, he gives in, and we can only hope that this works out in her favor. We will see what happens on tonight's episode, which I am about to watch now, and I will get that review to you guys sooner than later, I promise. So slide in the comments, let me know what you guys think, and I will be back real soon with the video for episode 9. Okay, stay tuned. Thanks for your patience. Bye.